was Oscar Wilde's love Bosie Douglas. The worst boyfriend ever? Alfred Bosie Douglas was a complicated man. He was spoilt, reckless, prone to violent tempers, and that's what his friends said about him. He was a gifted writer who was too lazy to fulfill his potential. At different times he was endearingly thoughtful and callously thoughtless. He inflicted suffering on those closest to him, but was no stranger to suffering himself. In his later years, he became a kindly uncle and a raging anti-Semite. He was also the man who so infatuated Oscar Wilde that the greatest writer of his generation was willing to risk his reputation and ultimately his freedom for him. It is his relationship with Wilde for which he is now remembered. Bosie was not good. He is typically seen as the malevolent influence who introduced Wilde to the murky world of male gigolos and pressured him to pursue the disastrous libel case against his father, the Marquis of Queensberry. And this characterization is certainly not without merit. But to what extent is it unfair on Bosie? And indeed, to what extent does it rob Wilde of agency in the reckless and selfish behavior that led to his downfall? Having met Wilde sometime in 1891, when he was 20 and the Irish writer was 36, they began a sexual relationship in 1892, which quickly progressed from having sex with each other to partaking in parties with multiple men. It is not Douglas and Wilde's sexuality that will bother people in 2024, so much as the identity of the men they picked up. Young, working-class men who it seems often felt pressured into acts by the more powerful protagonists. Although Wilde's subsequent generosity to these men is well documented, so is his lecherous behavior. Bosie, meanwhile, seems to have been unconcerned about what happened to these men after their encounters with him, if he didn't retain them for future encounters. Homosexuality was of course illegal in Victorian Britain, and it is in this context that Douglas and Wilde's recklessness must be understood. They made very little attempt to cover up their encounters and would host in some of London's most fashionable hotels, unconcerned by what shocked chambermaids and clerks might see. Wilde's sexuality was an open secret in London's literary circles, but he still had a reputation to protect. Bosie had no such qualms, insisting on being seen together and throwing tantrums when Wilde tried to concentrate on his writing. In his bitter letter to Bosie from prison, Wilde complained that he had never written a word in Bosie's company because he would not allow him to focus. Bosie's father, the Marquis of Queensberry, another thoroughly unpleasant man described as a chattering ape, had seen the pair together around London and had heard all the rumors about them. He had even turned up to Wilde's family home to confront him. After he sent a series of increasingly angry telegrams to his son, Bosie replied, without Wilde's knowledge, with a simple dismissive message, "What a funny little man you are." It only increased the Marquis's determination to expose them. While Wilde was growing increasingly anxious about Queensberry's threats, Bosie was rather enjoying the mounting tension and relished the thought of a confrontation. He counseled Wilde to bring his father to court, and when Queensberry left a note for Wilde accusing him of being a deviant, Wilde felt he had no choice but to sue him for libel. The trouble was that Wilde had no case. What Queensberry was saying was provably true. Everyone around Wilde told him not to pursue the case, but Bosie was adamant, even throwing yet another tantrum at a lunch where Wilde's literary friends urged him to drop the case. Bosie shouted that they were no friends of Oscar's and stormed away from the table, leaving Wilde to sheepishly apologize to his friends and hurry after him. As it turned out, he was following him to the abyss. Wilde's case duly fell apart, and within 8 terrible weeks over April and May 1895, he went from accuser to accused to convict. Not that Bosie was there to see much of it. He fled to France after Wilde's arrest.